Now, why would someone travel all the way across the world to ride some fake snow into a plastic bag? Well, it's the third week of our trip in Australia, and we've known about this complex the whole time we've been down here, but the main reason we traveled all this way was to get some real snowboarding up at Perisher. But then, over the last couple weeks, everyone down here has been telling us how great this airbag setup they have is, and I do have some tricks that I'd really like to learn, so we just had to go check it out. This place looks amazing. The complex is called the National Snow Sports Training Centre, and it was created by the Australian government in a town called Jindabyne. Now, you may be wondering why I was hesitant to come check it out, and there's two reasons for that. One is that airbags usually have some sketchy aspect about them, and two is that I have some feelings about airbags and their impact on snowboarding, but I'll get more into that later. First, let's start riding this thing. I eased into it by starting off in the small bag. Then, I moved up to the bigger bag, but by starting off on its smallest takeoff. And after my first couple hits, I could tell they had greatly reduced the negative aspects that most airbags have. The layout was designed by Charles Beckinsale, one of the top park builders in the world. He designed the angles of the takeoffs and landings to match his signature real snow jumps that he's perfected throughout the years. And you can feel it when you're riding it. Opposed to other bags I've ridden with quick takeoffs and flatter landings, this one has minimal G-forces on the takeoff, lots of hang time, and soft touchdown landings on the bag. I also thought getting used to this fake plastic snow would take some time, but this bag uses this fancy dry slope material, and it basically feels like real snow with just a little bit more friction. It's actually amazing how well you can hold an edge on it. Now, the two tricks I want to learn are backside double cork 1260s, hopefully it'll look just like this one right here, and then switch backside double cork 1080s, which I've done normally, but never switch. After getting a normal backside 1080 and then playing around with some switch backside spins, I knew I needed more airtime, and then I'd have to move up to the biggest takeoff if I wanted to actually land these tricks. But my biggest fear when riding airbags is getting stuck on the plastic and injuring myself. This is the most unpredictable and sketchy part about airbags. This bag has automatic sprinklers, so it can't get dry and sticky. And now I'm sure it's still possible to get stuck on this thing. I hadn't had a sticky moment this whole session. This added to my confidence, and I decided to drop in for the big one. And I guess I was still a little scared because I went too slow. At this point, our session was almost over, and I only had one hit left. And I wanted to build up to that switch backside 1080, so I decided to drop in switch for my final hit. And it felt so good. I know I can land these tricks if I just get some more time on them. So we decided to come back for a second day. On day 2, I started off by heading straight to the big jump. After a couple backside 1080s, I started going for the 12. The 12 requires a lot more confidence to commit to that last 180, and that's one thing airbags are really good for, helping you overcome your fear of tricks and build the confidence necessary to execute them. They obviously also help reduce the risk of injury too, which gives you more tries to build up that confidence and learn the trick. Now, I wasn't able to figure out the 1260 today, and I think that's likely due to the fact that even with the help of the airbag, I wasn't able to overcome my fear and tell my body what it needed to do to land the trick. But that's alright, sometimes these things just take time, and luckily enough, we had one more opportunity to ride this thing. But before we get to that, I want to share with you my thoughts on airbags, and I'm going to do so while I show you this horse that lives in our backyard. Okay, so I actually found it quite hard for me to gather my thoughts on this, and I think that's because I'm worried about what the snowboarders I look up to will think of this video. That's because as airbags began to gain adoption in snowboarding, there was a lot of pushback from riders in the circles that I frequent. This pushback has since dwindled, and the majority of those riders are now utilizing the benefits of airbags. And actually a majority of the contest riders you see today are using airbags to work on their tricks too. But no one is openly talking about it. And I fall into this category as well. I've been using airbags on and off for the last 10 years or so, and a lot of the tricks that you see in these videos, I actually worked out on airbags. But I haven't shared much about those experiences until now, in the fear of it affecting my core score or something. Which is unfortunate, because I do think that airbags have some real benefits for snowboarders. And the short and sweet of my thoughts on them are, I think airbags are a useful tool that can help riders reduce their risk of injury, providing them the opportunity to get more tries of their tricks, which in turn helps them build the confidence and skill sets required to land those tricks. So I want you to know, if you have the opportunity to ride an airbag, I think you should consider it, because it's a fun way to help you progress your snowboarding. That said, I would like to add that they are not risk-free. I've broken my collarbone before and given myself some mild concussions, and I've also seen much worse injuries throughout the years. So it's just like any tool. You should respect them and use them in a responsible way. I also highly recommend focusing on the fundamentals of snowboarding first and fostering your love for it on snow before pushing for that extra rotation into the bag. Now, do I think airbags are going to destroy the soul of snowboarding? No, I don't. I think the snowboard community is too strong to be destroyed by something like that, and unlike in many other sports, the majority of its soul exists outside of the competitive realm. Now, I would like to mention some of the negative impacts airbags can have on snowboarding. Number one, they can lead to some bad habits in the way that you do your tricks. And then two, on a more macro scale, snowboarding is already a very expensive sport, and its barrier of entry is too high for most of the world. This is compounded in competitive snowboarding, which from my experience, the rider pool is already shrinking. And if riding airbags becomes a necessity to be competitive, that may shrink it even more. This would be bad for snowboarding as a whole. But overall, I think airbags will have a net positive impact on snowboarders by providing them the opportunity to land the tricks that they've always dreamt of. Because let me tell you, that's pretty fun. Okay, back to the boarding. On day 3, we got into things even faster. We got a back 10, and then we went for some 12s. I got this 12 here, and it felt like my closest one yet. But I knew this was our last day here and that my time was limited, so even though it wasn't quite right, I decided to move on to the switchback 10. I worked my way up to it by starting with a switchback 5, then a 7, and then a 9. And it was kind of scary spinning switch off this takeoff because if I drifted to the right, I could find myself off the bag and into a pile of rocks. But I was feeling good on my board, so I decided to go for the 10. I love that fall. But this one left me with a spark that I knew I could do. And then on my last hit, I landed it. Now, I'm still a far ways away from being able to say that I've done this trick. I've got to take it to snow before I can say that. But I'm one step closer now, which makes me really excited. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.